Hello everyone, great to see you again. If you caught our earlier demo, you'll remember we showed how a single text or voice command could drive a live browser session. Since then, we've been busy extending that concept into something far more powerful. An AI-powered agent that performs end-to-end functional tests on any web application. In today's demo, you'll watch how we use AI agent to write test cases, run the selected test cases with AI agent and track progress with real-time logs. Spin up a fresh isolated browser environment. Read plain language test scenarios the same way a QA engineer would. Navigate the UI, fill the forms, click buttons, and validate results with zero hard-coded selectors. Capture screenshots, logs, and structured verdicts that you can plug straight into your CI pipeline. And then carry out manual tasks on the browser using interactive chat and voice command, as you've already seen. By the end, you will see how this tool can eliminate brittle test scripts, cut regression cycles from days to minutes, and let your team focus on building features instead of fighting flaky automation. Let's dive in. So test case generation has, as you can see, a global instructions text box where you can put in all the global instructions required to generate test case, right? And then primary requirement text box where you enter the primary requirement based on which it generates the test cases for you. So let me try an example here. Let me try to enter some text which I've already written down. I will click on generate test cases in the meantime. So basically, like I've said, on this test case, user must be logged in, and I've given on global instructions what is the login URL for login page. Similarly, I've asked it to create a company here, company creation page, and fill the form. So it has to create a company here, and it knows what the URL for that company page is. So those global instructions are already there, and then based on using them and then using primary requirements, it will create the test cases for you. You can review the test cases here. So it's given you the steps here, and then it's given you what needs to be verified, right? And then pass status is basically optional or mandatory. For example, if it's a login page and if that test case fails, then you do not want it to execute any other test case. So in that case, you want it to be mandatory so that the next test cases are only tried if the previous test case was pass. Right? But if that test case does not have any implication on further testing, then you can leave it as optional. Once you've fine-tuned your test case here, you can save it. The list would display down here at the bottom. So all of these tests are there. Some of them are mandatory, some of them are optional. And then you can pick and choose which ones you want to test. And then you can export it as an Excel file. So let me try to open that Excel file now. For example, here we can see the generated spreadsheet. So it generates the test case heading as we saw on the screen. And then it generates those steps that are required for this particular test case. And then it has those verification steps. And there we saw optional or mandatory pass status. So for example, login has to be mandatory. Only then it will, go to the next step. So some of the steps which are mandatory have been marked as mandatory. Otherwise, other steps are left blank. So this spreadsheet is directly generated from the application itself. And then we can use it to execute the test case, which we'll do now. Okay, so as we can see, there are two browser windows open. One has our testing agent. And on the other side, we've got google.com, which is open on the other browser. So now let's get started with the testing. Let's see how it works. So I've got the spreadsheet that we exported. Let me try to drag and drop it here. And let's see. So basically, it's following the instructions from this file, and it's displaying what instructions it's executing right now. For example, the first step was navigate to that page, and then now it's trying to enter that login password. It's logged into the application. Now it will have to basically, okay, so it's got the screenshot here. Let me try and see the screenshot. So, okay, so it's got the screenshot. Now it will try and go and click on manage projects. So the first test case has passed, right? And it has to now click on basically add project button. So it has to add a project. Now it has to generate a unique name. So it's saying that in the current browser page, get the list of all the text fields in the form and generate unique valid values. So it's generated the unique valid values using date time there. Yeah, so now it'll try and create it. These were the exact steps that we mentioned there. So as soon as it's done this part, it was asked to take a screenshot so that we can see what project name it generated. So basically the project was generated. Now it'll have to go back and verify whether the project name is same or not. So on the current, okay, so now it'll have to go and fill in the record meeting form. This is a quite extensive form. It's got lots of fields in there. So this is one of the applications that we use basically to record meetings. If you've got meetings on, let's say, Teams or Google Meet or something, this application can record meetings there. It can basically get the video, it can transcribe the video, it can set up the action items and everything in your project management system. So that's what this application is about. So that's what this agent is testing. It's trying to create some participants there. It has set up the meeting title. It has set up a description, which is a random description. It has to have at least 2 participants in the meeting. So that's what it's trying to do. It's trying to add multiple participants there. It seems to be using the current date time to set up a unique participant name and email. We are using Yopmail for testing because that's, I think you're aware, it's a free email account. Anybody can browse it without password and stuff. I don't know whether you use it or not. So it's created a meeting, right? And it's given me a screenshot here as well in real time. So I can see that, what all it created. It can see that this meeting is here. It has verified that the meeting creation was successful because it looked at the name, right? And then it logged out successfully. So that's how it operates. It goes through each and every step and comes up with the real-time log here. And then once the test case is complete, it gives you an opportunity to download the spreadsheet for the test results, how it went through and what all it did, right? And it has also generated a log file for this. So if I close this window, I can still go into log file and view it. We'll go and view it as well. So this is how, this was really fast and quick right now. But yeah, because this has had very few steps in there. So if you've got extensive list of tests that need to be run, it can go through them one by one, and it runs for 15-20 minutes. We've done that. We are actually using it right now. So this was a small demo where I had like just 3 or 4 steps in there. So yeah, it was able to get this done. Okay, so here we can see that the folder that was created during the test run, there are 2 spreadsheets in there. One is the actual test cases that were processed. The other one is result spreadsheet, and then you've got the run logs here. Let me try and quickly do a run log. So this clearly shows you what all steps were run. This is exactly what you saw on the screens as well, right? And then you've got a folder where you've got screenshots. I can click on that. Let me try and see. So on the screenshots, it clearly tells you, which test case was being run, what step was there. So those steps are clearly listed here. Test case 2, step 6, test case 3, step 11. Let me try to open the spreadsheet. So this was the spreadsheet for the test execution that we passed to it, right? And let me see the results spreadsheet. So by default, it shows up like this. I can expand it a little bit. Let's wrap text. Okay, so everything was successful. Let me zoom in a little bit. So it tells you all the steps that were carried out. It tells you the mandatory things, and it tells you success. So this is pretty much a replica of the actual test script that was actual test spreadsheet that was passed to it. It just creates a replica. At times when it fails, then it gives you, the failure reason and status failed here. That's what it does. But generally, yeah, at least on this case, it did not fail. So, the failure rates with the models that we are using are a lot lower now. We are almost 85%, 90% of the times. If the application is working fine, it will just pass. If there is an issue on application, then obviously the test case should fail, and it does fail. But because we know that AI agent is using LLM behind the scenes, LLMs at times, generate wrong instructions. So although we've given it, some bandwidth to correct itself, but at times it's not able to correct itself, which is where the test case might fail because of the LLM. But those test cases, those scenarios are pretty rare. That happens like once in 10 times. And then what we do is we run it like multiple times, like 2 or 3 times, so that, even if it fails once, if it passes on next 2 runs, then it's all successful. So that's what we've been doing. Okay, so this basically completes the testing part of it. We saw this folder as well, and the whole tests ran, and that was all passed. So now coming on to the final part of this test suite agent. So basically on the third tab, we've got interactive chat. This you've already seen in action. I can talk, I can type in something, and it'll automatically start doing that action on the browser. What this is really useful for is when you're composing a test case, when you're writing the test case, on some of the steps you're not really sure what needs to be done, so you can run those commands here. You can see that in action in the browser, and then you can put it on your test cases. So at times, like initially when you're learning how to write those test cases so that they work on the application well, you can run it live here, and you can view it on the browser. So that's where it's really useful. Otherwise, mostly you use test run execution tab. You'll just put the spreadsheet there and you'll just run it, right? So, and it's not that it's just using a browser agent. There are a couple of other agents that you've written behind the scenes, because obviously running those test cases, at times what happens is, let's say test case 2 is creating the company, right? Now running the test case 3, it has to know what company was created earlier on. So we don't want to hard code the names of the companies or anything that is getting created at all. So what we've done is basically there's a memory MCP as well. So what you've created in step 2 for a test case, you store it in the memory, and then the agent automatically retrieves it in step 3 to be able to compare whether the company name that was created in step 2 is still there or not. So search and all, they will be based on that memory that agent already has. So there are a lot of other components as well which are working behind the scenes. We are only looking at the browser right now, but yeah, so that is also really useful. All right, let's wrap this demo up. Behind the scenes, we ran a lot of large language models to check which ones work well in this context. The goal of that was to find the sweet spot between the accuracy and cost of the model being used. Tool use skills and instruction following were the 2 key metrics that mattered a lot in this context. Actually, we ended up evaluating multiple LLMs to figure out which one works best in this context. And for that, we ended up writing a complete LLM evaluation framework for selecting the right LLM for this context. And we evaluated more than 15 LLMs for this. So that framework itself deserves its own video. So stay tuned for that deep dive. So far, we are concentrating on executing the test cases, and that piece of the test framework is rock solid now. Next step is test case generation. We want to give the agent a user flow and a few screenshots, and it should author the test suite automatically. That's what we are focused on right now. Thanks for watching. If you're excited about AI-driven testing and you have some questions or comments, send them across to me and we can interact and figure things out for you as well. Thank you.